Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome here to the launch pad and a little bit of breaking coverage that we didn't expect to see. The Chinese crew from the Chinese space station we understood was getting ready to depart their space station over the last few days. Well, the crew has departed the station and is actually preparing for re-entry. The three taikonauts are headed home after a record-breaking 6-month mission on the Chinese space station. They launched on October 15th, 2021. On a Long March 2F launch vehicle. They were set to come home on April 16th, 2022, which is today in China. So they've been up so far 182 days and about 3 hours so far and are on their way home. They have conducted 2 EVAs while on orbit, lasting a total of 12 hours and 36 minutes. So we're tuning into live coverage from CGTN, who covered the launch. Obviously, with China, we don't have a lot of coverage from the government, but the crews are making their way to the expected landing zone. They just announced the coordinates of those landing zones on air, so their teams are making their way to the perimeter of where that will occur, and then we will go from there. The estimated landing time is 1:35 to 2:05 a.m. I'm not sure which time zone. 9:35 to 10:05 Beijing time. There was a NOTAM for the landing zone that is near the border of the Mongolian territory. We are seeing, but we're waiting to see confirmation of the crew's return here and what coverage we have. A little bit of mixed communication as it is China on what is actually happening and when the crew will actually be touching down on the surface. We're going to stay live and bring you updates as it is, and we're going to patch in the commentators to hear updates on how this is progressing as we wait for the crew to be seen in the recovery zone.
About 90 to 100 kilometers high, will begin what we call we have already discussed the blackout area.
神舟13号报告，飞船状态正常，完毕。
That's the mission commander speaking.
Yeah,
They are saying
from,
that
from the crew, from the commander, Mr. Zhai Zhigang.
yes,
reporting.
saying the spacecraft is operating normally. Everything is fine.
Yeah.
But if you make a comparison with the capsule of the Shenzhou to the space shuttle, the Shenzhou capsule, the capsule module is relatively safe in comparison because it's a simpler design and also can be robust and re-entry can be very safe if you have a good parachute, and of course we have also backup parachute. So all the process can be relatively safe in comparison with the more complex space shuttle and many other re-entry capsules.
Professor Young, earlier you were saying that obviously when these astronauts return to Earth after such a long stay in space, they're going to experience a lot of physical difficulties. Yeah, exactly, and physical ailments, really. So when do astronauts report feeling this? Is this the moment that they step onto Earth, or will it happen as soon as they kind of enter Earth's atmosphere?
Well, after the vehicle touching the atmosphere, they will feel the very serious G-forces, usually 3 to 4 times than their own mass. Because that we choose, as I have mentioned, the semi-ballistic or semi-lift trajectory. So the whole re-entry procedure is prolonged, and the maximum of the peak G-force is only less than 4 times of their own mass. But if we have an emergency re-entry, which the trajectory is more steeper, at this case, the maximum of the G-force can reach to 8 to 10. So the astronauts must be trained before their flight missions to adapt. They can adapt these so big G-forces. Usually, they will stay in the training facilities, and the peak of the G-force can reach to more than 8. Moreover, even at this moment, the astronauts, especially the commander and the pilot, should have the ability to operate necessary, for instance, to press some buttons to get some operations during this very difficult, very tough phases.
So there's a lot of reports of astronauts feeling dizzy, for example, right? This is when they get to space and also when they return to Earth. And this is something that they would feel once they touch down and once they can step onto the ground, or do you think
they have missed the gravity for 6 months. So as soon as the blackout starts, they will feel the gravity itself, because the parachute is going to is being dragged by the atmosphere. So they are re-entering the Earth by a deceleration process.
So this stage we're looking at right now, they're relatively comfortable.
They're still in microgravity
Yeah,
environment.
seated in the cabin there. Can we talk about their baggage there? I mean, we talked about how in preparation of this return, they tidied up the space station, they packed up, and they're bringing back a bunch of stuff. We're talking about experiment data. We're talking about samples, possibly. What are they taking back with them on this trip home?
Well, I think they're taking back a lot of scientific experiments, samples, as you mentioned. Also, some of but the biggest package you saw probably is not the experiment itself. It's some rescue raft or some other things. So it's not things that you see from the surface, because they're not taking a substantial amount of things back to Earth. They're taking also only the essential part, probably only the data. And also the return of the capsule is for the sake of the 3 astronauts. That's the main priority. So the astronauts' safety is the biggest concern. So they're returning with parachutes, backup parachutes, raft, and all safety precautions. So all of those are primary goals.
Understood.
And the others are maybe some scientific samples that they brought back from station.
As Yansong has already mentioned, we not only should prepare for the normal return, but also should be prepared for the emergency cases. So we have some food, water, and even we have gun, have a pistol in the re-entry capsule. Because in some abnormal cases, we maybe landed in the forest. Maybe we landed on the sea. So even there are beasts. So they must, the astronauts has capability to survive before the rescue team arrived. So that is very important. You see that this time we have a faster return. And the faster return is not only more comfortable for the astronaut, because you know that the volume of our space station is about 50 cubic meters. So that's very comfortable. But the Shenzhou spaceship, even including the orbital module, the total volume of the Shenzhou spaceship is about 7 cubic meters. Very narrow place and very not very comfortable. So we should shorten their stay in the capsule as short as possible. And also, we've already discussed about the samples. For some samples, for instance, such as the blood, and also other research results for the biological research and the medical research, usually we need a very low temperature to store these samples. So a faster return can also bring more chances for the ground teams to get the samples as soon as possible and keep it in a very good storage condition.
Yeah, we understand the separation from the propulsion module has happened, or
will be happening in
will
a
be
minute.
will be happening anytime now.
Just now we see the videos from the inside the capsule. That means that we still have the communication link between the vehicle and the ground stations or the data relay satellite, so we can transfer the videos from the re-entry capsule. But after the separation, the main device for the data relay satellite will be jettisoned together with the propulsion module.
So what would you say is the most nerve-wracking time then for ground control and also for the crew coming back? Would it be this blackout
I
time?
see the parachutes. Because
Or we can see, we can still hear that Yaping is talking.
So we still have communication with them now?
did you hear what she was saying? I didn't.
No, I couldn't
quite
make it out what
catch
she
that.
said.
长程报告推反分离。
Great.
All right, the separation of the propulsion module
Yeah.
has now happened,
北京明白。
meaning that the return capsule is closer to the Earth's atmosphere.
So what we have already mentioned, the two very critical
各号注
separation
意，
has been
推反
accomplished.
分离。
Yes, two
Just confirm that.
tasks down.
So that happened, I think, 145 kilometers above the Earth and above the areas of Africa. So that
Okay.
we're coming back from Africa all the way through India and Pakistan, and then all the way to Inner Mongolia.
Through Xinjiang.
Through Xinjiang. So that is the trajectory itself. So this is happening above African area. So that we're starting the descent by the capsule itself. So it's the point of no return at this moment.
So, Zhongshu, you think the parachutes is probably the most nerve-wracking time?
I've heard from engineers at the Beijing ground control team who say that for them, that's the point where they can really breathe a sigh of relief, knowing that, okay, chances are that they're going to come home just fine. They're going to land safely.
I would agree with Zhongshi, but also there's a blackout that is also nerve-wracking. But after
That's
blackout,
what, 4 to 6 minutes?
Yes, yeah, roughly that time. Yes.
Okay.
But the parachute deployment also has a great affection to the astronaut itself because the astronaut will feel it. So they're traveling at 180 or 200 meters per second. And then at the moment of parachute deployment, that is descending the speed very rapidly. So they'll feel about 3 or 4 Gs of gravity.
Yes. Mr. Yang Liwei, the first astronaut of China, has mentioned that during the deployment of the main chute, he feels a very, very intensive impact of the deployment of the main parachute.
Yeah, we can only imagine that jolt you feel when the parachute is trying to slow you down from very high speed.
So the announcement of Kashgan ground station have captured the capsule itself. So that means it's observable from Xinjiang with the autonomous
Oh,
region.
that's great
okay.
to know.
Locking down the target.
Oh, great. The commander mentioned that the Kashi.
Well, and good evening, everyone. Welcome here to the launch pad. We are live for surprise coverage from China as 3 taikonauts are heading back home to Earth. Shenzhou-13 was aboard the new Chinese space station, the Tian core module, being the first module of the new Tiangong space station. This crew launched on October 15th, 2021 at 1623 UTC and is on schedule to return back to Earth. We just heard confirmation that the crew has jettisoned from their propulsion module, which means they are now committed on re-entry. This jettisoning occurring at about 145 kilometers above the Earth's, and we've heard that occurred above Africa at this time. Not a lot of information has been provided by the Chinese Space Agency on this re-entry, but it was shared that it was expected to occur between 1:35 and 2:05 UTC, which is 9:35 p.m. to 10:05 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, which starts in 1 minute from now. So the crew is right on schedule. They're coming home. There is a landing zone that has been designated, which we have heard confirmation of. They've sent out, it looks to be a large drone to that landing site, and it's been doing just circles in it. The first estimation of a landing location is 41 degrees north by 100 degrees east. We'll drop in the chat there the actual estimated full coordinates for those interested to pull it up on a map, but we've also heard confirmation now that they do have sight of them from the ground, even though they haven't actually done the re-entry yet. We still have that blackout period like we normally see with Dragon coming home, and we'll see with Orion and Starliner in the future, but this crew apparently has been tracked from the ground, it sounds like. The Chinese space station currently technically abandoned as no crew is on board. This is a normal thing that will happen with the Chinese space station as it grows. Right now it's only got a couple small modules, so there's not a lot of space there, but the crew having cleaned it up, packed it up, bringing a bunch of research home, a brand new record of 183 days for the Chinese aboard their brand new space station. We've got confirmation that the crew undocked from the core module at 1644 UTC, so a very quick return to Earth being performed here by the Chinese with the Shenzhou-13 and its 3 taikonauts on board. If you guys have questions, you can drop those in the chat. We'll continue to answer them to the best of our abilities, as we don't have really a ton of information from the Chinese, but we'll still try to answer those questions for you guys as this re-entry occurs and how we go from there. We do have, they have confirmed now that those coordinates, which have been confirmed as the landing site for a second time. So that is a good sign that they are beginning to really narrow down where they believe this capsule is going to come. And there looks to be possibly a live view of it. We'll turn up the audio and listen in here to CGTN and their live coverage of Shenzhou-13's return to Earth.
So this is quite a tense moment, or tense 4 to 6 minutes, really.
Yes. We just heard from the commander that the tracking of the Kashi ground station has already been finished, which means that I believe that at this moment the vehicle is already in Xinjiang Autonomous Region.
Left,
Right.
yes, yeah. Left west of Xinjiang, so beyond their observation.
To the east of the
Getting
Kashi
closer.
station. So we can see the long trail of the re-entry capsule. The long trail is generated by the ablative material, which is vaporized by the high temperature caused by the friction with the atmosphere. And also, as Yanzong has mentioned, the high temperature of the ablated material will form a ionized field, plasma shield.
For those just joining us, the Shenzhou-13 in its re-entry, the coordinates being confirmed on where this crew is coming through, and we're seeing some live shots of the Chinese Space Agency tracking this capsule with the 3 taikonauts on board as it begins making its journey home. We're unclear if these are live shots or these are shots that are being just transmitted as the crew is being returned. Estimated landing time was over the next 35 minutes or so from now was the window they expected the crew to be home back on Earth. So they are within that window, and we're waiting to hear more confirmations. Again, this is the Chinese crew on their way home after spending 138 days aboard the Chinese space, 183 days, excuse me, aboard the brand new Chinese space station.
We have inertial measurement units inside the vehicle, and we also have the navigation satellite devices. So with these measurements, we can also get the data of the position and the velocity of the re-entry capsule, together with data from the derived from the readers and optical telescopes. We can have the another prediction.
So there's a traction of different ground stations that they're announcing their end of the tracking. Because
Right.
the capsule is descending, so the horizon is a bit lower, so they're
Right, so
beyond the
they're
horizon.
losing
So the astronauts on board, they're feeling vibrations at this moment, and also they can look out of the window and see red flames out of the window.
So once they're out of the blackout zone, that's about 40 kilometers from Earth, right?
Yeah.
And then from that point to when they land, we can expect that in just a matter of...
Matter of minutes, yes. Because there is a deployment of parachute, and that will take some time for the capsule to descend from 10 kilometers to 0.
青山发现目标。
These are
Another
announcements of
observation
different
site
ground
there.
stations. Yes.
We just heard from the voice that Shuangcheng and Jinshan has captured the trajectory of the vehicle. Shuangcheng and Jinshan are very close to the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center, which means that the vehicle is already very close to the landing zone.
That's good
Jinshan
news
is,
to
I
hear.
think, is in.
So if you're just joining us, the Shenzhou-13 currently in its blackout, just like we see with Dragon. These are shots, though, of it being tracked through that. We're expecting parachute deployment in the next couple of minutes as this crew comes home. From what we've been hearing from the host there, they are approaching where that targeted landing zone is. A little different from how we see Dragon come home. The Chinese agency confirming landing coordinates after how the re-entry burn and last burns performed, unlike where Dragon, they still have an area they're targeting, but they're pretty spot on exactly how long that burn needs to be to get to a very specific zone. This one having quite a large NOTAM area put into effect for this crew's re-entry, but right now they're using radar to track the capsule as it begins making its way back to Earth. The crew having separated from the station a number of hours ago, about 8-9 hours ago, and beginning their journey back to home, but a very quick return and re-entry underway, and that blackout because of the re-entry plasma heating separating the communications, but still being tracked with radar. Crews are on the perimeter of the landing site and the targeted locations. We can drop those in the chat again if you guys want to look up the landing location based on the coordinates from the Chinese Space Agency on where this crew will actually land and descent. Some amazing shots though of it coming through the atmosphere there as it begins its descent to its targeted landing site. If it's your first time here though, take a moment, hit that subscribe button, and if you can, hit the like button. It really does help us out, and it's free to do so. But let's keep listening in as we wait for the Shenzhou crew to exit blackout and hear an update on the capsule.
During mission, that not only the G-force they will experience, but also a very intensive violation because vibration, because that's the aerodynamic forces not only produce the G-forces, but also the vibration is very intensive. Right. So they will be trained on the ground to simulate these conditions, and they will in good condition during the re-entry.
Right. I mean, it makes sense that they stay conscious and stay in touch.
But for the people maybe who have not been trained for these kind of conditions, maybe they will faint. As
right.
Yes, even roller coaster can get you faint.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
But so, the people, human body can kind of separate.
Looks like we've come out of the blackout zone here.
That during this re-entry,
and that looks to me like a drogue chute dragging behind the capsule there. A daylight shot. That's exactly what it is. A drogue chute being confirmed by visual. And there are the mains. And we'll see how they unreef. Really incredible shots there as we see those rogues separate. And there are that main chute. And we have a good main chute. One very large chute. There is a backup in case anything were to go wrong. But there is the crew returning home after 183 days in space at the Tiangong Chinese space station. 3 taikonauts on board, that's what China calls their astronauts, making their way back down to a landing site.
Red and white, making it easier.
If you can see the parachute there, this rescue team should be very close now. Yes. So we can observe this.
And it's a massive one, something like 1,200
square meters.
The parachute? The parachute itself.
It's about three basketball square.
Yes, that's how big it is.
But that's the main parachute. So
yeah, the main parachute. The total area of the main parachute is about 1,200 square meters. Very, very huge.
And how many other ones can we expect?
That's
more than one?
We can hear from the commander that he announced the third prediction of the landing point again.
Now, of course, with this visual already observable from the ground, it's safe to say that the third forecast will even be more accurate.
At
this moment, the measurement of the wind speed will be very important for the prediction of the landing point.
So they must now be, 30 kilometers from Earth? Even closer?
Less than 10.
Less than 10 now? Yeah. Wow.
So at about 6 kilometers high, they will jettison the heating shield, and then emitting all the propellants, because we use hydrogen as the propellant for the attitude control
so
of the
that could have happened any time now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it takes about 10 minutes for the vehicle to touch down after the deployment of the parachute. And after the deployment of the main parachute, the speed will be reduced to less than 10 meters per second.
That view we're seeing now, that's presumably a graph of where they'll be landing. Little image.
This process is just incredible. to look at how multiple systems, multiple teams and departments work together to pinpoint where exactly the touchdown will happen, and they will make their way there almost immediately after.
This point is very close to the launch site, to the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center. You know that 3 years before, during my first visit to the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center, it is my first time during my life to see the Milky Way.
Oh.
So you can see how clear the sky near that point is. Very, very beautiful.
You can see the weather is in great condition, so there's no cloud and everything
sky
is
is
observable.
Sandstorms, very important.
No sandstorms, yes. No wind, that's also very important.
So this is an
各
infrared
方注
image.
意，我是北京，防热
Yeah,
大
it
地
doesn't
好。
look like it's like
Okay,
walking.
the heating shield is jettisoned
Okay.
according to the announcement of the
It's the
commander.
Beijing,
猛士，
Beijing crew, I think.
Yeah, if you look at the parachute, it doesn't look like it's too windy. Otherwise, it would be,
Dangling,
Blowing
yes.
back and forth, right?
blowing back and forth, a little wobbling.
And after deployment of the parachute, we also have operation to change the direction of the ropes connected to the vehicle from inclined direction to the perpendicular direction. To
How does that happen automatically?
to change some connections on the ropes.
过去提升完成。
Okay, so we will emit all the propellants.
北京明白。
The next step will be the raising of the seats of the 3 astronauts.
Right. So sorry, so just remind us again and the audience and our viewers why we need that
北京
seat.
明白。
That's because we touch down on the ground is a rigid surface, so we should reduce the impact to the greatest extent. Not only we use the retro rockets, but also we use the energy dumping mechanism of the seats. We raise the seats, and
it's
then
like a
during the
suspen-
touchdown, we can dump most of the energy.
Okay.
It's like a car suspension.
To give it more, right, to give it more cushioning.
And we won't know how the
Beijing
capsule
about.
will land, right? The last time in Shenzhou-13, it was sideways. It was
That's
sideways.
a normal.
That's
very normal.
Is that ideal though?
It's not ideal. Of course, the perpendicular attitude will be the most ideal. But what you mentioned is also very normal. This is because that's the centroid or the center of the mass of the capsule have some deviation from the symmetrical axis of the vehicle.
So if it lands sideways and the astronauts are sitting obviously upright, well, they're lying
Well,
upright.
the
on the
moment of
capsule.
landing is always vertical. And that's
and then
after
it
the
tips-
landing, it's tipped
and then
over
tips
or
over.
dragged
Yeah.
over by their parachutes or some other
But it's
factor.
entirely possible.
But it's always vertical.
But then it's entirely possible that once it's stationary, once it's landed, possibly tipped over stationary, that the astronauts are sitting in their seats but facing.
It could be, yeah.
They're suspended and they're facing
Possible.
down.
Could be hanging over, yes.
Bit of a test for them to
emission
extract
of the
themselves.
propellants
The smoke you see there.
because it's toxic.
Right.
So we, after deployment of the parachute, we do not need these propellants any longer. So we will emit these toxic propellants. And usually, in the rescue team, there will also be one person to measure if there do have any existence of this hydrazine. So if the measurement is 0, it will be safe for the rescue team.
Yeah, that
You open
happens
the
just
hatch.
minutes after the touchdown. There will be someone from the ground team to monitor substances in the
And also,
environment.
we have a very important procedure to use the lead cover to cover the gamma ray altimeter because it's radioactive.
And for those just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. You're looking at a live view out in China as the Chinese crew of 3 taikonauts, after 183 days aboard the Chinese Tiangong space station, is making their way back to Earth, having departed earlier today for us in North America, yesterday for our friends in Europe and Asia, but they are on their way back. We had confirmation of the deorbit burn occurring about an hour ago, and as you can see, we've got one really great main chute. This chute over 1,400 square feet in size of space. It's a very large chute, and you can see live cameras there actually of the recovery teams making their way to the landing site. The coordinates having remained the same, they are making their way to where that touchdown is set to occur. You can see the capsule moving around a little bit more as there are some light winds, it seems, in the area, but this is also from a moving target station tracking them as well. But the crew again spending 183 days up on station, returning back to Earth. This was the first full crew up to that new Chinese space station, and we do expect a new crew to be going up in the not too distant future as well. If you haven't yet, take a moment, hit that like button. It really does help us out, and we always try to cover everything space, all the launches of all the agencies. With China, it's a little bit harder as there's not a lot of coverage given. We were able to cover the launch, which we were really excited about, and we're glad to see that there is a bit of coverage being provided to media for the landing as well. Excited to see these three back down on Earth. They did a lot of different science experiments and bringing those home, as well as a lot of interactions with schools. Currently, this Chinese space station is technically abandoned. It's up in orbit. It's stable. The crew having cleaned it up and packed everything away, getting it ready for when a next crew arrives. This is what the Chinese space station will be like for a while until it's fully expanded and has permanent capabilities. But the crew making their descent, or hearing that main chutes deployed around the 10 to 15 kilometer range in altitude, and now are making their way down. A few minutes ago, we saw the jettisoning of the heat shield being performed, as well as the release of any remaining propellants, and that has been released as well, and the seats are being rotated to prepare for landing. This crew will land just like a Soyuz on land. This is not a water landing like we see with Dragon, so a little bit of a harder landing, so they changed the seat orientation prior to that to try to make it as comfortable as they can for the crew. Touchdown expected to be probably just a few minutes from now as they make their final descent back down to Earth.
Understanding each other, and also are good at communication, and also more careful in operations. So it is very necessary to have female astronauts. I believe that during the operation of Chinese space station, we will have other female astronauts.
Yeah, to think that they wouldn't get along in that short space for 6 months, that would be...
Oh, that would be terrible.
But you know, that's with the help of the communication system, Yaping can have communication with her husband and with her kids very constantly, very frequently. They can call their family members directly.
That is crucial. That is crucial.
And also they can have very private communications. They have to have these kind of chances during their mission.
We also watched a few lectures live streamed from the space station.
Yep.
That was pretty interesting as well. So they had 2 live classrooms, I believe.
Completely different from environment on Earth, yes.
I mean, should Wang Yaping decide she doesn't want to be an astronaut anymore, she'd be a great teacher. I mean, just look at the live space labs that she led and championed up there in space.
And she would need 2 astronauts as assistants.
I mean, their commander-in-chief pretty much was the cameraman that you know, filmed them the entire time.
Every time during the educational lecture of Yaping, she always repeat her famous saying that the dream of flying never weightless. And also the dream of scientific research has infinite intention.
I mean, talk about instilling a passion in young Chinese and young people everywhere who aspire to be astronauts. That is a great way to do it.
Well, Mr. Xu, I think we watched the first lecture together, didn't we?
Exactly,
And,
with the ping pong ball floating in the
and
middle.
And the blue liquid
Yes.
in the bigger...
And the flower, yes.
And the water bubble, yeah. And I was saying then, Zhongshu, to Mr. Xu, that if I had watched that lecture from space when I was young, maybe I would have chosen a different career path.
Yeah.
Maybe.
You know that some of the students watching Yaping's first lecture in 1913 has already become part of our crew in the space programs.
That's
Wow.
just wonderful to hear. Yaping is the second Chinese female astronaut to have made it. Her maiden trip was back in 2013, where she also delivered a lecture from space.
Yeah.
But this is her
during,
first time. This is the first woman inside the space station.
Yes,
So
and also during some interview of Yaping with the media, she also mentioned that her wish is to someday to walk on the moon as a Chinese astronaut.
青山耕种结束，
Yeah, she did promise her daughter
青山
that
耕种
she
结束。
would bring her back
回收
a
1号耕种结
star,
束，
just
回收1
one,
号耕种结束。
not greedy.
She asked me to provide some names before the birth of her daughter.
Did she go with your choice of names?
Pity that's not mine.
maybe next time.
Yes.
So we just heard earlier 2 more ground stations saying that they finished tracking.
Yeah, we're seeing that it's very close to the ground now. So even the image from the parachute see that image from the helicopter see the parachute is horizontal. It's like very close. Could be coming down at any moment.
This last 40 kilometers seems to be taking a lot longer. Well, it's a lot longer than I had expected because the 80 to 100 kilometers was only in the blackout zone, only took what?
Well, that was
4
high
minutes?
high velocity.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is like
This one.
10 or 20 meters per
time to
second. Yeah.
adjust.
下降，报告完毕。
I mean, this is
北京
by
明白。
intention. You certainly don't want them to
No,
最后
I
go
don't want
注意
them crashing
too
我是
fast,
北京
right?
下面通报返回舱第4次落点预报，落
Okay,
点
the
经度
fourth and possibly
东
the
经
last
幺洞洞
forecast
度，动9
with
分
coordinates.
43秒，东经幺洞洞度，动9
Yeah,
分
that's taking effect
Oh,
of
they're
the
very
wind
落
and
点纬
everything.
度
So it's
北
coming
纬
down at any
41 度
moment.
39分11秒，北纬
You'll
41
see the
度
ritual.
39
Yeah,
秒
the
Oh,
ritual
wow.
engine
Great.
is
And
fired. Yes.
touchdown. There it is. Shenzhou-13 crew having touchdown in China at the Gobi Desert, confirming there the location. That parachute absolutely massive, and you'll see recovery crews getting to approach that site now that they do have confirmation. And let's see, did the capsule land upright or is it on its side? The last time we saw one of these capsules return, it did end up on its side, but that looks to me like it is upright, which is a great sign. There's the helicopter crews making their way onto the location. If you're just joining us, the Shenzhou-13 having returned to Earth after 183 days up at the Chinese space station, the first crew, and that capsule looks like it's upright to me and looks to be in pretty good condition there. Similar type of landing to what we see with a Soyuz, with a similar type of response, bringing those helicopters in. Really unique to see these cameras being on these first crews arriving on site.
TV
Earth.
game, you know, we have the helicopters coming down, mission accomplished.
Yeah, it does look a little surreal. Yeah, the helicopters are reporting that they have arrived in position. You have people on the ground moving their way towards the capsule.
We haven't heard anything from the astronauts just yet, have we?
So the ground crew is checking everything, so they'll have to wait for the ground crew to come.
There's a huge crew there waiting for them. Isn't
They
there?
will not. The astronauts will not be opening, the gate to the capsule, right? It will be the
hatch,
ground.
the hatch
the
will be
hatch
open. Yeah,
The
by
ground
crew.
staff will open the hatch.
will open the hatch.
They have to check the hazard of the environment, the external.
Yeah, we've never had issues with the opening of the hatch, right? I mean, with all that's happened, if it's
Damaged.
damaged,
or
that'll be a problem
stuck,
to
right.
open, but we haven't had that issue. Yeah, you see people dressed in different colors, indicating that they're from different systems.
东风明白。
It does look like something out of a sci-fi movie right now, doesn't it?
Looks like they're not going to be using that pistol this time, though.
This time they will need a ladder to
东风报告。
open the hatch.
Oh, with the elevated seats
The ladder
to open the hatch.
yes.
Okay.
主伞已脱落，下一步。
Yeah, the last time because it was sideways, I didn't remember them using any ladder.
No,
to,
no
Beijing
ladder.
明白。
Just open, yes. No. So they announced the main parachute had been detached.
And they'll be checking the environment now to see if there's anything, any of the toxins remaining, right, from all
Yeah,
the
the
paddling fuel
helicopter
that was-
are the first observer teams and also communication teams. They arrive and they will coordinate the arrival of the ground team that are traveling with the convoy. And once they arrive, they will have all the facilities and equipments in the car. From there, they can start the process, of opening the hatch and greeting the astronauts and make sure that the astronauts are okay and ready to move out before they do anything to the astronauts.
动9分43秒。
So is it just the propellant that they were releasing earlier that could potentially cause danger? Is there anything else that could be residual on
As
the capsule?
Professor Yang mentioned, there's also a
Gamma ray
altimeter.
yeah,
Right.
altimeter that could be radioactive.
And that's why they have to go into quarantine as well for a bit, right?
No, no, no.
Not because of the
Quarantine's not
gamma rays,
for
but
Not the
they
case.
have to.
The quarantine is caused because that they stayed in isolated
Right.
volume for so long period. So the microbe environment is quite different from our common daily life. So their immune system will be relatively weak. So we need this quarantine procedure to ensure their safety and healthy.
It's like last time NASA administrator visited China and he had diarrhea. And he said, it's because of different germs.
You can compare to the expedition team to the South Pole. Usually, that's during their missions to the South Pole, seldom people will be ill and catch cold because they do not have so much microbes in the South Pole in Antarctic regions. But when they get back, usually they will very easily to get ill because they will need to readapt our ordinary environment. So this quarantine is very, very necessary.
So no concern of anything in space that could have that they would
Could
need
have
to be in
come
a
back with
quarantine.
them.
So- yeah.
There's also
I
what we
think
call it.
they're trying to open the hatch now. I thought that I saw a ladder and someone was on that ladder trying to open the hatch.
3公里吧。
Well, they definitely need a ladder to go up.
Yeah. Have we heard from the
They're
Taikonauts
talking to the
Doesn't
astronauts,
seem so.
communicating with the window. I think through the window they're trying to see what's inside and what the astronauts are okay.
Yeah. Can the astronauts hear them through that window?
Yeah, they can hear the helicopters and the big noises.
So the capsule's not too soundproof.
These are welcome noises that they
yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
want to
Things
hear.
they want to hear. Yes.
Absolutely. I mean, the capsule itself doesn't look too charred, considering
Yeah, there was
return
a
process. I
heat
mean,
insulation
look at it.
bottom that was dropped, so the side of the capsule has been also burned relatively well. It's especially the side that's facing the Earth. The upper side is okay because it's less burned. So the chart you see from the charcoal on the lower part of the capsule. So they're coming back in a
the hatch
in an
has been
angle.
opened.
Yes. So they have the ladder now. They are trying to open the hatch.
So
So
the medical team will
in
go
fast,
first
right?
into the vehicle
In white. In
to
white,
help the
yes.
astronauts.
The guys in white are medical teams.
Yes.
So I'm trying to imagine, Professor Yang, what you were saying about this next generation of
Airbags.
yes, airbags surrounding the capsule as it lands, and how they would have to navigate their way. Rescue
Actually
search teams
speaking,
have
not
to
only
navigate their
we
way
China
through it.
use this on this new generation spaceship, the U.S. the Starliner also use the similar technical methodology to use the airbag for the energy impact dumping.
It's impressive every time they have the people with the red flag always go there and
First there with the flag.
Of course, it's a moment of national pride.
yes.
Yeah,
There's
it
going to
takes
be-
it takes a little bit of time for the medical team to check up on the astronauts,
And
and
the
they are readapting, readjusting, obviously, to gravity and to everything around them. We should be able to see them in a few moments, though.
Can we expect them to be walking out, or will they be lifted
no.
out? Right, their
They
legs,
will be
taken out by the ground
muscles,
staff.
Right.
There'll be
seated
6 or 8
in
guys
chairs.
with the armchair, and then they will start carrying them to. I'll probably put them on right below the flag, and some interviews and some
I mean,
talks.
gravity aside, they haven't eaten in the past 9, 10, or more hours on this trip back home.
That's what they're experiencing. I mean, gravity for 6 months for the first time. Yes.
So it could be a while before they're able to get the strength in their legs back.
Yeah. The astronauts will feel their arms and legs are so heavy at this moment because they have been floating the atmosphere in the station for 6 months.
Right.
So they have to lift their arms at this moment, and usually they don't have to take any efforts to do that, and they're floating around. Now they have to make an effort, use their muscle to lift everything. So everything would
Big
feel very,
changes.
very heavy. It's like you're swimming for 1 hour or two, and then you feel, the gravity.
We can see that the re-entry capsule is in different colors in different parts.
Professor?
Yes.
All right. We're going to talk to our reporter Sun Ye now. She's at the Beijing Aerospace Control Center. Sun Ye, so a successful return for our astronauts. What is everyone saying there?
Hey there, I'll just quickly update what we're having here. We're actually pretty much seeing the same live streaming, the broadcasting of their return. And the experts here at the Beijing Control Center have been saying the touchdown is perfect. Many of them have been putting a thumb up to us, saying the touchdown has been perfect. And they are saying the 3 taikonauts, Shenzhou-13 crew, they are in the best position to come out of that re-entry capsule. They're sitting in the perfect position for them to make the best outing of that capsule. And again, in that last half an hour or so here at the Beijing Control Center, everyone is kind of still holding a little bit of breath, not because of the process, not because they think of it as dangerous, because all of them, including the taikonauts, have been practicing, running through drills, and they are familiar with the process. But just because the mission itself is so meaningful and such a success, and here now we've been hearing many, many good news already. Now, back to you.
Thank you so much for that update, Sun Ye. I'll speak to you again later. Meaningful indeed. I mean, this is a lot of firsts, records made on this trip. And this is, this is all kind of part of China building its space station, right? So this is the second manned mission for the space station target. And we'll have 2 more after this.
2 more
Am I
this
right?
year. 2 more this year for the construction completion of the station from I shape to T shape. So another 2 wings to add to the station.
Right,
2 more fuselage, and then we are completing the station with 2 more missions.
And their stays will overlap briefly in the space station.
Week or 2, yes.
So there will be 6 people altogether.
6 people in the
that
station.
space.
For party
for
up
1
there.
week.
Yeah.
For 1 week.
During the turnover of each different expedition teams, the Shenzhou-13 will reach the station before the leaving of the Shenzhou-14 crew. So they will stay there together for about 1 week.
Will any of their missions, the 2 to come, out be longer than this current one? Or is this one going to be the
Well,
longest one
the
so far?
ordinary turnover of each team will be 6 months,
Okay.
just like this one. But Mr. Zhou Jianping, the chief designer of China's manned space program, said also it is possible for Earth to have longer missions. I believe that will be mainly for scientific research to measure, for instance, a longer residence duration, more than half a year, the influence of the outer space to the human body. So that will be a very meaningful study, especially as a preparation for the future missions, potential future mission to the Mars.
The longest duration I remember was 800 days plus.
800 days.
That's accumulated one.
Yeah.
So the one single residence is the record is 437
It's a
days
Russian
in the Mir station. A Russian cosmonaut called Polyaev.
And it's good that the medical people were only there briefly, and which is a sign that the astronauts are doing fine. And then,
as I have mentioned, they are just in the gravity readaptation procedure.
They have to reorient themselves. Their body and biological system are different.
Right. What would they be doing in this procedure, though? Just sort of waiting
Just
it out,
taking
or would they
breath,
be
sometimes drink
exercising?
some water.
Okay.
and the puffness in their faces will go down now that they're back on Earth.
Not so quick.
Not too quick. And they will only have their first meal later today. It's not like they can
imagine.
feast right after they come out of the
Can't imagine they'd
capsule.
want to so soon either. If they're
Usually
adjusting.
they will have their first meal before they fly back to Beijing, just maybe this afternoon.
Okay.
Why did they
Dongfeng
make that
我是北京。
flight today? Why don't they like take the day off and just rest? Why do they fly right back to Beijing on the day they land?
Usually from the Dingxin Airport, very close to the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center.
But why the hurry?
I think for medical,
For medical
for
reasons.
medical purpose. Yes.
东风明白。
And they'll be doing their quarantine
Dongfeng.
essentially in Beijing as well.
Yeah. In the apartment of the astronauts in the
back
space
home.
in
no.
the space city of Beijing.
Ah, okay.
On the way to the Great Wall.
Flurry of activity there. So we're checking in with the astronauts.
So these guys in blue color, which system are they from?
I think it's also the medical team, judging from their trousers, because the blue is just the overcoat, I think.
Okay.
And it's the condition in the Gobi Desert is still
Pretty
chilly.
cold there, right?
You can see from the flag that it's so windy.
So it could still be a long while before we get to see any of them
Yes.
come out of the capsule.
Usually, that's the commander sit in the middle. Usually, in ordinary cases, the commander come out of the vehicle first.
I mean, it looks like it's going to be difficult to lift them from that position from when the hatch is.
Right, exactly. It's a very small opening.
It's a very
to
small
get them
opening,
out.
and how do you lift them up one by one from there?
I suppose we'll find out.
Yeah, we'll find out. We'll keep watching.
全音报告，电携站架设开通完毕，报告完毕。
北京明白。
I mean, they'll be coming back with so much data and so much information to
The last few
process.
times has been horizontal, so they can some sort of carry them out. So this time they have to climb themselves out, I think.
Which could mean that they need more time to regain that
Yeah.
strength to move out of the hatch there.
So I want to ask you a little bit more about the mission that these three have completed. I mean, what were some of the, would you say, were some of the biggest technical breakthroughs from this mission for the Shenzhou-13?
For the Shenzhou-13, I think the biggest one is the duration itself. 6 months has been unprecedented. That's a breakthrough for even also for the astronauts to stay in orbit. The longest one before was 33 days crew. So this is the biggest challenge, and also the breakthrough also goes on to the station itself. The spacesuit they wear is also a newly designed, and also the female astronauts doing EVA, and also is a breakthrough because the spacesuit has to be tailor-made for the females, for the smaller figures.
Yeah, we're hearing from the ground team who report that the health checkup on the Taikonauts turns out to be good, that they're in good health. They should be able to come out of the hatch any time now. This is their readaptation period as they once again feel the gravity here on
北京明白
Earth.。
So the astronauts are ready to report at this moment.
We haven't heard from them once they landed, right? We
Yeah,
haven't heard-
before blackout, yes, and also
Yeah,
yes,
they're communicating,
during
I guess,
descent
with
it was.
the medics now instead.
Just minutes before, we heard the voice of Mr. Zhai Zhigang after the main chute is deployed.
Yeah, but not since they landed.
Yeah,
we have
we
yet to
haven't
hear
heard
them
them
speak.
yet.
Yes. But obviously, the ground team that were there checking up on them have reported that they're doing fine, they're in good health. They just need this brief time to recuperate, and then it's likely that they will have to climb out of the hatch themselves.
And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. You're looking at live views from the Gobi Desert as the Shenzhou-13 crew has returned to Earth after 183 days on orbit and had a great landing, even given the extremely strong winds at the landing site of having the capsule land upright. This is a good and a bad thing for the crew, as landing upright is always better, but when it lands sideways, it's a little easier for them to get pulled out, not having to pull themselves up against that gravity for the first time in all these days and then get down that ladder. But you can see there those recovery crews on site having made their way, and the flags very quickly and prominently displayed around the landing site. A lot of national pride for the Chinese Space Agency in China with their crew. We're expecting 2 more of these missions this year, Shenzhou-14 and Shenzhou-15, still being planned for this year as China continues to complete its international space station, or, well, its space station. It could be international. They've said they're open to possibly having people in the future attend to it, possibly Russia visiting and others, so we'll wait to see how that is performed. But we are hearing that the crews have confirmed that the health of all 4 taikonauts on board are in good condition, and we're waiting for the crew to exit that vehicle. Rare to see coverage from China, so we do appreciate seeing these live views from the launch site. You can see all the vehicles coming up in the background. That's some of the 2nd and 3rd teams arriving on location. If you follow us over on Twitter, we just tweeted a video. If you were watching closely, right as those first 2 helicopters descended on the site, 2 camels were seen running away from right near the launch, or right near the landing site. This landing site is in the middle of the Gobi Desert. It's where the crew ended up landing, and we're seeing those medical teams talking to the crew as they prepare to exit the vehicle, seeing some stuff starting to be handed out. A very tight fit, similar to a Soyuz. Not a lot of extra room in there, so they're moving stuff around to be able to get out there. First time in 183 days, these 3 are having to lift every part of their body, including their arms. We heard a little while ago from the commentator on the stream that a really good example is, imagine going into the swimming pool for an hour or 2, and that feeling of lightness, and then having to get out of the pool and just that weight that's on your arms. Imagine that for your entire body, and imagine having been in the pool for half a year. So it's quite a feeling. You can see there the parachute off in the distance. Crews already looks like working on it, possibly folding it up. Quite a few people around on site. The crew will head straight back to Beijing for medical checks and everything, and that's expected, whether they'll have their first meal back as well, as they haven't had one pretty much since they were on station. If you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat. Just take us at the launch pad. We'll try to answer those to the best of our ability. Not a lot is known from the Chinese agency, but you can see that toasted marshmallow look of a capsule back here on Earth. Some incredible close-up views of that capsule having just made its re-entry.
Positioning angle for our taikonauts to get used to the gravitational environment again. And just now we have checked out that all the 3 taikonauts, they are in very good physical conditions. We have also dispatched our medics inside the cabin to check out the current status of our 3 astronauts. We would like to make sure that we can have some basic understanding about their status quo, and moving forward, we will also go through a pre-designated procedure of the medical treatment for our astronauts before getting them out of the cabin. So we have to wait a little bit more with a lot of patience. I'm now also waiting together with you. I'm on the spot. It will take about 30 to 40 minutes for us to finally see the exit of the 3 taikonauts out of the return cabin. I'm also very excited. I've taken the helicopter, I have followed the whole observation in the air. I'd like to share with you some personal observations and feelings. First of all, it has been a very precise landing, and especially for that moment of the landing by the return capsule. At the same moment, our helicopters made the landing too. It's almost simultaneous landing. And we have also realized the measurement in a very precise way. For the manned space program, it's a program with high requirement of the precision. We need a highly precise technologies to guide us through. And we also need a lot of advanced technologies to support the extension of the parachutes as well as the other stages along this process of the returning of the capsule. For example, the igniting, and also at this exact moment of the landing, the detachment between the parachute and also the return capsule in a manual manner, because you can see that it's quite windy here, so we have to do this manual separation between the return capsule from the parachute, and everyone's contributing their part of effort, and we are working in a perfect coordination. I've also heard from the site, and we have made this whole procedure very friendly to our astronauts. We have also streamlined the process because we understand that the 3 taikonauts, they have been working and living in the space for 6 months. They have been working in.
So on your screen there, you can see the crews are now bringing in the much larger structure to the around the capsule. This is going to be placed right above that main opening there. This is able to be used since the capsule did land upright, and it's able to be positioned so the crew can have easier access to exit the capsule, have some more support with those handholds there, and be brought out of that capsule, now experiencing gravity first time in 183 days. You also saw there on the wide shot those 3 large orange vehicles arriving with the medical crews. You're seeing Humvees as well. Keep in mind, this is in the middle of the Gobi Desert. But Beijing, they're confirming they've announced a successful completion of the Shenzhou-13 manned mission. Lots of vehicles arriving in the background, but remember, they are in the middle of nowhere, so pretty much everyone that's supposed to be there is there, as crews only finalize the landing site following the re-entry burn.
Currently, we have already established this whole network of coordination and telecommunication.
现在现场的
And now the procedure is running in an orderly manner on the spot of the landing. The medics, they are working very hard inside the return capsule. They are communicating with our astronauts. So in the return capsule, I've also received some latest updates just a few moments ago.
You've been hearing the voice of our colleague at the Mandarin channel who is watching all of this unfold very closely. It looks like the taikonauts are getting ready to come out through the hatch there. I mean, I feel very conflicted here. I'm dying to see them, but I don't want them to rush because obviously they need this time to get ready. And as you see, every scenario of the hatch exit was anticipated. You see those ground personnel there erecting all these ladders for them to climb down. This was obviously prepared for this landing position.
And we heard earlier from the chief designer for the landing site that these crews have been conducting drills after drills to prepare for this, so they would be ready for all eventualities and scenarios. So this is obviously, as you said, within their anticipation. It's all running smoothly.
Yeah, this reminds me of also the company, American company Blue Origin. They also have a capsule that goes to to outer space, about 100 kilometers, and then come back, and also in vertical position. But they have like a side door they can open, and with the walkout of the astronaut, and also huge windows, and they can.
No separate.
Yeah.
We have set up this operation platform. We have also dispatched experts and also medics to the landing site. They are preparing the whole site. And just now I've received some latest updates a few moments ago. We have all attached great importance and attention to the first meal that our 3 taikonauts are going to have when they land. They can have a huge diversity of choices for their first meal after the landing. They have the Chinese bombs, they have the porridge, as well as the noodles. They have the potato and the Chinese baby cabbage, and also the seaweed and some pickles, as well as the sausages. They can also have a strawberry, the tomatoes, cucumbers, as well as the yogurt. So from this recipe, and also the menu for their first meal after their landing, that's a very enriched meal, and according to the latest information, our medics and also the experts on the site, they are proceeding with the preliminary preparations before the exit of our 3 taikonauts from the return capsule. There are also 3 medical care vehicles waiting now on the spot. So this is 1 medical care vehicle for each of the 3 taikonauts. This time it will be quite different from the previous landing experiences, because this time we would like to shorten as much as possible the waiting time for our 3 astronauts. This time we have this specialized chairs to transfer our 3 taikonauts to the vehicles. Inside each of the medical vehicles, there is a usable surface of 12 square meters. This is a significant improvement compared to the previous landing of the Shenzhou-13 with a limited area between 7 to 8 square meters, and you count that the last time for the Shenzhou-12 we had 3 astronauts too. So if you do the calculation, that's quite limited space for each of the taikonauts. But this time we have greatly improved conditions for the afterwards care and medical treatment to our 3 taikonauts. We have made the environment and all the conditions much more friendly to the taikonauts. They can have a very good environment to take a rest inside. They can enjoy each of them 1 whole vehicle for their care, and they can also be expecting very delicious meals during their first meal after the landing. We have prepared a very enriched and abundant meal for them. So judging by the existing procedure, you can see that we have made a lot of improvements.
And our colleague in the Mandarin channel reporting on the site there. My takeaway from that is that they get to eat pretty much everything. There is basically nothing they can't eat should they have the appetite for it.
It's not a too shabby menu, is it? Plus something from your province too.
Absolutely.
Sichuan sausages.
Yes, Mr. Ye Guangfu is a native of Sichuan province, so maybe he likes spicy food.
Yes, and they had quite a variety of food to choose from when they were working there in the space station, right? More than 100 different kinds of food to sustain them for the past 6 months.
So it sounds like as long as it's nutritious, diet's not too big a factor in their recuperation after landing, right?
Yeah, the space food is always tastes different from food on Earth. Also, you have the experience of flying. You have the lunch and dinner on the plane, and the food is completely different from what you have on Earth. So they're different tastes. And also
Right.
before the meal, they will have a bumpy ride back to the base,
Yes.
and the vehicles are ready, and they have had a very smooth ride for 6 months, and this is the first time they're taking the vehicle.
But a more comfortable one than the ones that the last crew rode on back to Beijing. This one is 12 square meters, I think they said, so very spacious, and I guess enough for the crew, the medical crew, to be around as well, to look after them and be on hand when they need.
In outer space, because of the microgravity environment, the blood will be distributed in our bodies, so the tongue will be less sensitive than on the Earth. So as Yansong has mentioned, maybe the space food will be more salty, more spicy,
Right,
sort
right.
of that.
It's so nice to see that the whole ground team tend to their needs at this moment. They deserve every bit of it after what they endured, what they were able to accomplish on this very long business trip, shall we say?
They say national heroes.
Absolutely.
And the ground team has been in drill for several times to practice all kinds of conditions, not
Right.
only this normal condition, but in some other different conditions. They must face the different case for the rescue the astronauts.
Speaking of the ground crew, let's get another update from our reporter Sun Ye, who's at the Beijing Aerospace Command Center. Sun Ye, so bring us up to date on the latest.
Hi there. Again, here from the Beijing Control Center. You heard it. We heard it. Announcement of complete success. A complete success of touchdown. And fresh off that, the announcement, we have Li Liang, who is one of the designers here at the Beijing Control Center. I'm going to ask him what it feels like after this whole night. 谢谢你，就是李亮老师今天能够刚刚宣布
So,
成
Mr.
功
Lee,
就来。
just now we have declared the successful landing of the return capsule, and we heard rounds of applauses on the site of the commanding center. You've been staying here on the site. How do you feel now? From yesterday morning until now, we've been working here, trying to safeguard this mission, and this time the astronauts have made the successful return to Earth. We feel that our efforts are paying off. And just now, I've noticed that a lot of people have shown their thumbs up.
呀，演练一模一样。
So does the real scenario corresponds with the scenarios in the drills? Yes, we practiced everything. The whole process has been running very smoothly. We have realized a very precise control, and also the landing in general is a very perfect one. We've also heard for multiple times that it has been a very perfect mission. So this is a mission that has lasted for more than 6 months. It's the first time for us to have this very long experience. And what's so special for you about this mission? For the first time, we have used a mirroring separation for our spaceship, and correspondingly we have carried out a lot of design details and also the drills. We have also activated the rapid return plans with only 5 orbits. We have first of all carried out the process of verification. We have also used the real spaceship to do the drills. We have also elaborated a lot of plans for the emergency response to make sure that the return plan can be realized in a very rapid way. So you have already communicated with the crew members of the Shenzhou-13 about the rapid return plan? Yes. Previously, in our communication with the Taikonauts, I have already told them that we may use this rapid return plan that can help us to save a dozen of hours, and they were very happy upon hearing this news about the rapid return plan. And we are also very proud because we made it. Thank you very much. And because Mr. Lee
so the
has
mission
to
is not
leave.
complete for people here at the Beijing Control Center. Mr. Li Liang, who's part of the team, the ground team here at the Beijing Control Center, he was one of those who gave a huge applause when that successful touchdown happened. And we will be updating about this whole process throughout the rest of the day. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Sun Ye, and a huge congratulations to everybody there.
I mean, it's a relieving day for people that have worked on this mission, but their colleagues, their other teams are busy preparing for next missions to come. We're talking about a very busy schedule for China's space program this year. 2 more modules, experimental modules to be sent up, 2 more crews to be sent up into space. And by the end of the year, we're expecting the completion of China's own space station, a T-shaped structure, a T-shaped space station up there in space, designed for a lifespan of between 10 to 15 years altogether.
So 11 missions altogether for 2021 and 2022. And we'll have, this one is just one of those. So the manned missions that you're talking about, and of course there's going to be some cargo missions there as well, right? Some cargo flights.
Next month we will have the Tianzhou-13 cargo mission from the Wenchang satellite spacecraft launch site. But before that, they do have other critical steps. For instance, after the leaving of the Shenzhou-13 crew, the Tianzhou-3 cargo ship, currently docked to the rear docking port, will undock and turn to the front and then redock with the front docking port. This is to free the rear docking port for the Tianzhou-4 cargo ship. So before the arrival of the Shenzhou...
How does the redocking take place, Professor Yang?
It will be achieved automatically. By the cargo ship itself.
Okay.
This is very important for the arrival of the Tianzhou-4 mission, because before the arrival of the Shenzhou-14 crew, they will also have 2 cargo ships docked to the station, Tianzhou-3 and Tianzhou-4.
So what do you think are some of the big milestone missions that we can expect for the rest of this year?
Well, the next one we're expecting is the Shenzhou-14. That's the milestone.
The manned, right?
Yeah, the manned mission, and also the launching of the two more the Tianhe, Wentian and Mengtian. So there's those two. Yeah, the two more fuselage that is part of the station. So those are the historic moments that we're expecting, and also the overlapping of the 2 crews on board the Shenzhou, the Tiangong mission. That is also something to look forward. 6 guys at the same time on board the Tiangong.
That's the maximum capacity, right? You can only have 6 people at most at one time.
Well, you can have more on board, but that's not necessary at this moment. We can always accommodate more astronauts on board.
Okay.
Well, in the Wentian module, we will have another 3 beds for the bedrooms for the astronauts. So for the 6 crew, during the turnover of each expedition team, each astronaut will have his or her private space.
And then once the space station is complete, do you expect that China will have astronauts up there constantly? Will it be just
continuously?
Continuously.
Yeah.
Continuously.
Because this will be more efficient. You know that in these missions, before the leaving of the Shenzhou-13 crew, they must switch the configuration of the status of the station from manned status to an unmanned status. For instance, the life support and the environmental control system will be in a different condition. They will not produce oxygen from the water any longer, and also some other instruments must be switched to a different configuration. So in the future, after construction, as you have mentioned, we will not need this kind of switch.
Right.
So it will save a lot of time and also will be more efficient. Moreover, it is very important to let the different expedition team to be face to face and to introduce the work of the scientific research. There will be multiple scientific research racks on the Wentian and Mengtian module, and doing scientific research continuously. So before the leaving of one expedition team, in many cases the research will not be completed. So it is very important to introduce the current status, current condition to the next team in orbit.
Right. Well, whilst we're on the subject, Mr. Xu, so just give us an overview of the space station, and it will eventually look like a T, right?
Well, yes, we have 3 stations so far in history. The first one is, of course, the Russian Mir station. It's similar to the one we're constructing. And the second one is the International Space Station, which is huge in scale and is also participated by more than 20 countries. And also the newly deployed the Chinese station, which is a T-shape, total of 62 metric tons, or some say 90 metric tons in overall configurations. And also bear in mind that we're launching the station and the astronauts from two different launching sites. The Hainan satellite launching site in Wenchang was recently visited by President Xi. That is responsible for launching the fuselage, the station itself, and the cargo ships, the Tiangong, Wentian, and Mengtian, and also the cargo ship. All of those are launched from the Wenchang Satellite Launching Center. The astronauts going and coming back to Earth is using the Jiuquan Satellite Launching Center. So the return, the astronaut itself is run and operated in Inner Mongolia, where the stations, all the cargoes and the fuselage are being launched from Wenchang.
Are they moving chairs next to the capsule?
Yes.
Yeah, I think the astronauts, once they're out, they're going to be chaired.
In
yes.
anticipation of the exit of the astronauts any moment now.
And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad, our continuing coverage of the return to Earth with the Shenzhou-13. We're hearing that the crew is well on board. The capsule, as you can see there, has landed upright, and that chair now having been brought to the side of the capsule, showing that they are getting ready for the crew to exit the capsule, to go have their more in-depth medical checks in the tents before being loaded up and taken back to Beijing, where they will have their first meal and then probably some meetings and debriefs as they start a long day for them, having departed the station yesterday for those in China, today for us in the North America side, but I'm sure very excited to be home, excited to be back and see their families after 183 days on orbit. If you guys have questions, let us know in the chat. You can tag us at the launch pad. We'll be answering those as we continue. We'll be staying live until we see all three crew at least exit the capsule, but we'll continue answering those questions. If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button here at the launch pad. It's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow, because we believe that space is better together. That's why we cover American launches, mostly Russia launches, and the China space activity when we can. You can see that chair getting a blanket on it as it's quite windy. Two more going up, which I expect we will see the first taikonaut exiting the capsule here momentarily and being brought out towards where that chair is. Middle of the Gobi Desert is where the crew has landed here today. Luckily, the capsule having landed in the upright position. You can see more of the medical team there in the blue jackets running out into location with more bags to be ready to support the three crew members, or three taikonauts, exiting the capsule.
Okay, any moment now we should
Ready for the EVA on Earth.
the EVA on Earth, which will be much easier.
With many helping hands.
With many helping hands. You see three people, I think, on top of the hatch, ready to assist the taikonaut there.
And a few more for the descending. So they're ready to carry the astronauts onto the chair.
How long will it usually take before they can get their strength back and start walking
Could be
again by themselves?
Could be weeks, yes.
And during this time, would they still be undergoing some rehabilitation exercises as
Exactly,
well? Exactly,
because of the 6 months exposed in outer space, they have lost so much bone mass. They can have easily have a fraction of the bone. So their bone, their muscle needs to be rebuilt, and the inner ear has to find the balance on Earth.
Right.
So everything has to come together. So that will take some time. Even they have a hearty meal waiting for them still. It would take some time to recover.
They might find lifting chopsticks even pretty difficult, right?
You know that in a common situation, 6 months resident in space, they will lose about 12% of their bones.
Oh, wow.
So that will be a very severe condition for them.
It's a good thing that's reversible, right? When they
that's
and
reversible.
also not only the exercise, daily exercise is very, very important. Also, their nutrition, is very, very important.
The human body is such a thing that if you
It
don't
is very
use
interesting
it,
that I have a friend from Japan, a Japanese astronaut, Koichi Wakata. He said that when he can get back, the calcium in his bones even increased.
Oh.
So that's very amazing. That because of that is the importance of the nutrition.
Yeah, that's a good perk.
The exercises they were doing in the space station, I think, was there a bike that they were?
Yes,
right,
a
an
space
exercise
bike.
bike, right?
And also the treadmill.
I think Ye Guangfu was on that a lot. I see pictures of Ye Guangfu on that bike a lot.
lots of elastic bands. To
Right.
You know that some
Weights as
astronauts
well?
on the International Space Station even break a record to have a complete marathon we use with a treadmill. In
2 hours a
International
day.
Space Station.
That's pretty intense workout
Yeah.
for most people.
And also
anyway.
Yaping has the ability to accomplish a full marathon.
She has the ability. Has she successfully done that?
Yes.
Here on Earth?
Yes.
A marathon? Yeah.
A marathon.
Huh?
Yeah, apparently.
A full one? I'll have to find out.
I mean, she was said to be really good at PE back in school when she was growing up. That's why she stood up among her peers as a very capable candidate when she applied for.
She was a jet pilot before.
She was a jet pilot when she applied for that position.
She
at
is
the academy.
a freighter pilot.
But if you are astronauts in China, that means you eat well, you sleep well, and exercise. That's a
Very strict
majority
kind of
part of their
regime,
job.
right?
Yes.
It is also very interesting that Yaping
Very disciplined.
has the wish to become an astronaut when she watched the live coverage of CCTV of Yang Liwei's first trip. So you can see the outreach and also the broadcasting is very important for us.
Exactly. You don't know who are watching today and who will have who will be inspired from these people. I mean, I have so much respect for them because of their strenuous training and preparations for these missions, and also because of the risks they were willing to take to make this a success.
I don't think the psychological side of things as well.
Absolutely.
6 months in space. I mean, that is, as much as that's an exciting thing that not many humans will get to accomplish, I think it's still a huge amount of endurance, right?
And every time they
But,
appear in video, they seem to be in such good spirits. I mean, you're talking about live space lectures, or talking about their greetings to their fellow Chinese at the Chinese Lunar New Year Gala. And,
International Women's Day, don't forget that
International
one.
Women's Day.
And they eat dumpling during the
Oh, they had
festival.
dumplings up there with them.
报告完毕。公公明白。
They're
This is
helping
the
him.
moment now, yeah.
Yeah, they're helping him.
Oh,
So he's coming out.
must be Mr. Zhai.
That is
That's the commander.
Chief Commander Zhai Zhigang, who sat in the middle of the 3 seats there. He has now
So
come
he's
out of the hatch.
A true veteran. I mean, he is the first Chinese astronaut to conduct a spacewalk.
Yes.
Joined in 1996, China's manned space agency. Joined then.
I mean, he always looks so calm, cool, and collected throughout the journey there. Always smiling.
That's what makes a commander, isn't it?
Very trustworthy, exactly. Slowly moving his way down the platform.
So accumulated, he's
And there you can see him making his way out of the capsule towards his chair, being helped by his fellow medical personnel after 183 days on orbit, feeling gravity for the first time, and a really unique way of getting pulled out of the capsule using some straps and kind of coming down a slide there. But you can see him laughing and smiling about how crazy this thing is, but probably very excited to be home as well. But after 183 days, you're definitely not wanting to walk and climb out of those ladders, so getting lots of help, just like we see with the Soyuz crews, but looking to be in very high spirits.
Quarantine chamber.
But this suit itself, how much would that weigh? Not too
few
heavy.
kilos,
Is it
not
too
so
heavy?
heavy.
Okay.
It's a few kilos. They're able to walk in it. Yes.
Not like the 100 kilo spacesuits
No,
that they wear when they do
that's
it.
an EDA that with the life support system. Yes.
Actually
Yeah.
speaking, there have air supply and electrical supply from the cabin. So the IVA spacesuit is much more simple than the EVA spacesuits. And also, the most important thing, in fact, will be it provides a pressurization.
He's smiling.
He's smiling. There was a big thumbs up from him, which
the
is
gravity?
really nice to see.
Yeah.
Waving his hands and smiling at the same time. That's good to see. I mean, he's always
That's a
smiling. I
big
mean, every time
smile.
you see him, that guy is smiling.
His arm is so heavy.
Very reassuring.
That wave
Every
must have
time
felt
he
like
dropped
lifting
it,
weights.
it dropped his arm. Yes. A habit
It's
in
like
outer
waving
space. Yes.
with a 20 kilo weight
Yeah.
or something in your hand.
It's a little bit windy, so
Yeah, they're wrapping
he's
them
well
up very tightly.
cared.
He's saying something which we can't hear what he's saying, but he seems to be in very good spirits, waving to a cheering crowd
翟志
there
刚，你好，我是
at
中央广
landing
播电视
site.
总
Good
台的
morning,
记者
Judge
欢迎
Zhigang. I'm a journalist from
这次的您的感觉
CMG.
如何？
Welcome back. How do you feel now?
感觉非常良好，
I feel extremely good.
向祖国和人民报告，
I'd like to report
我们圆满完成
to my motherland and
神
the
13飞行
people.
任务。
We have successfully completed the mission of the Shenzhou-13. We are now
目
back
标我
on
现在
Earth.
感觉良好，
Astronaut 01, I myself,
习主
I'm
席
feeling
对
very
我们的
good.
关心关爱，
I'm really thankful
感
for
谢
President
全
Xi
国人民
for his attention
对我们的
attached to
支
our
持和
mission.
鼓
I
励。
also would like to say thank you to
感谢
Chinese people for your
中朝
care
前
and your
线人员
support.
日
Also,
夜
I
陪
would
护
like to say thank you to
相伴。
all the colleagues staying with
我
us.
们这是我们国家强大，才为我们搭建了这么高
Our
的
country has
工作平
grown
台。
so much stronger to be able to set up this wonderful working platform for our side. I'm so proud of our motherland, our country. Thank you.
He talked about a very high working platform. Indeed, 400 kilometers from Earth. That's the highest, pretty much the highest working platform anyone can wish for.
It's a long commute.
It's a very long commute and a very vibrated one.
Yeah, that's what we call high technology.
So they're coming out one by one.
Yeah,
We should be able to hear all of them speak a little bit.
because the commander always sit in the middle, so always he comes
First one
out
out.
first.
And he has been lifted off to the medical care vehicle, I assume.
I think they.
To the tents first.
A huge weight has been lifted off his shoulder. Can you imagine? I mean, he should need
The
all the
relief.
time in the world to rest and to recuperate.
We have 2 more astronauts waiting to come out.
Yeah, imagine 6 months without gravity, and then all of a sudden you feel all the gravity on your body, and even you feel your stomach, your heart is heavy.
Yeah,
So-
that's,
It's hard to imagine,
Yeah.
really.
hard to imagine. Really, yeah. I try. Try to put myself.
Well,
in
you
that
can
position,
you
but
can
then-
imagine that you submerge in water for a period of time, and you feel floating, and all of a sudden you came out of the water and you feel your body is very heavy, and that's what they done for 6 months. So it's very heavy for them, and it's
A
the
lot of
gravity.
respect to them.
Yeah.
And for people that are interested in China's space program, they probably have seen this last year with Shenzhou-12. But we're talking about a crew that stayed in space for 6 months. It's not just simple maths, twice the time they did. But then the impact on your body, the will, the stamina, the strength it takes to sustain a trip that long, it's just incredible. And these people are now back here on Earth with a new national record.
Presumably their recovery will take longer as well, right?
Yeah,
to
compared with the
Shenzhou
previous
12
cruise,
crew.
yes. the human body will recover after 2 or 3 months. So you regain your strength and you get more bone mass and you get used to gravity. Of course, first thing is to avoid friction of the bone. So that's why they're carrying them all the way instead of letting him walk it down. So they're getting the second astronauts out of it, and I think the astronaut also get what we call a culture shock, because you've been seeing the 3 faces for 6 months, and now you see so many different faces.
It's a nice culture shock to have, I'm sure. It's something that they will like to have.
But Yaping do have cosmetics during her mission because she can be seen not only by her crew members but also by the ground staff every day.
She put her makeup.
And by all of the people back here on Earth watching them power through this very long mission.
I can still remember that one day that the ground staff said, "Okay, I can see your 瓜子脸 again."
It's referring to her very chiseled cheeks.
I mean, the cameras certainly have liked her. I mean, every time she appears, she always looks warm, pretty professional, very engaging in her lectures.
Yeah, I definitely liked watching that classroom live streamed from space. Very dynamic in that.
I hope they get a long vacation after this, not having to worry about anything in the line after their work. And
they have a lot of experience to pass on to the next crew who are going up as well.
They need to do a lot of debriefings, works to be done.
Not
physically, maybe mentally. Yes.
Just before they leave, the Shenzhou-13 crew moved most of the important cargoes from the Tianzhou-3 cargo ship to the Tianhe module. Tianhe 1 core module, because that, as mentioned, the Tianzhou-3 must perform another undocking and redocking again. So the moving the cargoes to the Tianhe core module will avoid the cases that if the redocking is failed, so we can still keep the resupplies to the next team.
What about the waste that these astronauts would have produced?
Well, you may notice that several days before, the Tianzhou-2 cargo ship has just deorbited to the South Pacific. Most of the waste from the Shenzhou-12 crew and part from the Shenzhou-13 crew are installed in the Tianzhou-2 cargo ship and deorbited to the South Pacific. What we call the Nemo point. The Nemo point is a point in the South Pacific which is thousands of kilometers from any land of the Earth, and also they seldom have any ships or aircraft there, so it's safe enough for the deorbiting of the spacecraft. Usually, most of the cargo ships from other countries and also the stations are deorbited to this point.
So they would have
called
left
space trash field.
So they would have left the space station basically completely ready for the next crew to move in, waste included, nothing left in there for them to have to deal with.
But actually speaking, the waste of the astronauts also very valuable for scientific research, especially their experiment. Because that the influence of the outer space to this kind of waste is also very helpful for us to understand the, for instance, the breeding of the microbes and also other scientific purposes.
So will this have to be brought back?
Not all of this, because the downloading capability of the Shenzhou spaceship is limited, usually about 50 kilograms.
So remember, the weight of the capsule also affects the trajectory of the return. So that everything is being
calculated to a T.
This
right?
one.
Yaping coming out.
She's her usual cheerful self, waving to the crowd waiting there. Professor Yan, how do you feel about seeing your friend back here on Earth for the first time in 6 months?
Yaping is still so energetic, like usual.
sliding down.
can hear a lot of cheering for her.
Yeah, people shouting her name.
You can see the slider itself, and the astronaut slides down with the belt behind, so they're dragging it. So there's gently slide down and carried by 6 people onto the chair.
Oh, look at that huge bright smile.
She's just happy to be back. There's no mistaking that.
I believe the most happy person on the earth will be her daughter, Zhao Yunxi.
I imagine so. And she has made so many firsts on this flight.
Yeah.
I mean, she had big dreams when she was little, growing up, to first become a pilot, and then a career as an astronaut in China's space program.
And for the first time in 6 months, someone to wave to.
So 15 days she spent on the Shenzhou-13, and then now added to this 183 days. So she's the Chinese astronaut who's been in space for the longest.
Yeah. So she now keeps the longest accumulated duration in China among all astronauts of China.
Record setter.
王亚平你好，我是中央广播电视总台的
Good
记者
morning, Wang
欢迎回
Yaping.
来。
I'm the journalist from CMG. Welcome back. After this spatial trip of 6 months, have you completed all the mission given by your daughter? And do you have any message to share with us all? It's been a trip to the space for more than 180 days, but we are not alone because we have been cheered up by the messages of congratulations from President Xi Jinping, and we are accompanied by all the colleagues from our side. We are also welcomed by all the people and supported by them in this country. And now I have a message for my daughter.
谢谢。
I'm back with all the stars collected for you.
Oh, well, that's a heartwarming but also quite touching message there.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think we've got to remember that as a mother, being separated from her child for this long, I mean, that's a huge mental thing to have to deal with, isn't it?
But she can have video dialogue with her daughter very frequently.
As frequently as she wanted?
Yes.
Okay. That's good. That's good. I mean, she obviously had the full support of her family, her daughter, her husband.
Miss Huang Weifen, the chief designer of the astronaut system, also mentioned that during the Shenzhou-12 mission, Mr. Nie Haisheng called her one day during the flight. So
out of the blue, on scheduled call.
Not
So he's
not
the
on
commander of the last,
schedule. So it's very a very helpful, a very happy surprise.
And I suppose the next crew would want to meet them when the time is convenient, just to get a sense of what's in store for them. I mean, obviously, they all train in as similar circumstances as possible, but it's a different story when you actually go up there.
Of course, they'll have a lot of practical tips to share.
Yeah.
I mean, there
So.
are things that you can't train for, I imagine, as well.
So as the introduction of the ground staff to the reporters, so the 3 astronauts will be in different ground vehicles.
What's the size of their living space in the Tiangong?
50 cubic meters.
50 cubic meters.
So in the future, after the construction, it will be extended to 110 cubic meters.
That includes your sleeping quarters, your work zones,
Yes.
experimental.
Workhouse
Exactly.
zones as
But
well.
honestly
Yeah.
speaking, the volume of the Tianzhou cargo ship is not included. And also, it will also increase the total volume of their living quarter. As I mentioned, the Japanese astronaut Koichi Wakata mentioned that she slept many times in the experimental modules or in the cargo ships. So because it's very quiet there, so it is also extended their total volume.
50 cubic meters, that's quite a hard concept for a lot of
Like
people to try and visualize.
One
so.
hotel room, but it's a 3D.
I mean, one of the experimental modules that are scheduled to be sent up this year could also double as the core module should emergencies happen, right? That's one of their functions when we send Mengtian and Wentian up there.
Exactly. You know that the Tianhe core module plays a role as the center of the station. For instance, the environmental control, the living quarter, and also the communications, and also the data handling. But the Wentian has a very special role as a backup of the core module. So it also has a independent life support system to support, as we have already discussed, the life support for 6 crew members, and also another 3 bedroom as a private volume for each astronaut.
The EVAs that they did when they were on the space station, I think one of them was using a robotic arm to control.
Yes, the
right?
robotic arm is
advancement
to
for
help
China.
the astronaut to move from one place to another more fast and more convenient. Moreover, with the help of the robotic arm, the astronaut can take very heavy instruments together with them. You know that usually when they're moving on the surface of the station by themselves, during the last EVA of the Shenzhou-13 crew, they also tested to trying to take some objects together with them. But that will be very difficult. But with the help of the robotic arm, that will be more easier.
So this will all help with the advancing and building the space station, right?
Yeah, and also we should emphasize that the EVAs performed by the Shenzhou-12 crew and the Shenzhou.
The last of the
Okay,
crew,
Mr. Ye Guangfu.
Ye Guangfu is now exiting the capsule. They're pulling him out.
He's the youngest crew member.
And it's the first time for him to be in space.
Yes.
Ready to slide down.
He's the youngest. He's only 1 year younger than Wang Yaping.
Mr. Ye Guangfu is very special. You know that we have a tradition that we don't release the names of our astronauts before their flight missions. But Ye Guangfu is an exception. This is because he attended joint training with ESA before. So his name was known by us several years before his flight missions. So this is a very special case. And because he was trained in Europe and he can speak English well, so I believe that he will be a very good choice for the future joint missions with other countries.
And for the 2 more missions this year, will it always be a combination of veterans and new astronauts?
Yes, this time 2 veterans, Mr. Zhai Zhigang and Yaping, are all veterans who have flight missions before. Mr. Ye Guangfu is a newcomer.
I mean, that's definitely a good way to train future astronauts.
This is because you know that's also a similar configuration of the Shenzhou-12 mission, because these 2 missions are too important for Earth.
And veterans are needed to the construction of the station because they're not there to, just to enjoy the microgravity environment. They have to build their house.
Right. The spacesuits that they're wearing currently, are those boots weighted in any way? The boots that they're wearing on their spacesuits, would they have weights?
No, these are not
normal?
for walking.
Okay.
Yes, these are just for
microgravity
environment. Yes.
Good morning, Ye Guangfu. I'm with CMG. So it's your first spatial trip, and it's been more than 6 months. How do you feel now when you're back on Earth? For my first spatial trip, and it's a long one, which has lasted for half a year, that is a challenge for my side. At this moment, I've also made my dream come true to fly to the space. I can report back to my motherland. Now I'm feeling very good. Please don't worry for me. And in the future, we will always follow the instructions and calls of our country, the CBC Central Committee, and our people. We will never let you down. Thank you. See you in Beijing.
Now we already have 5 astronauts from the second batch of Chinese astronaut teams. Mr. Chen Dong, Mr. Ye Guangfu, Mr. Tang Hongbo, and also together with Ms. Liu Yang and Ms. Wang Yaping, 5 astronauts of the second group, mainly are born in 1980 also. So I believe that these astronauts will play a very major role in the future operation of China's space station because they already have the flight experience and also they are still very young.
Do they mean that they could possibly be going again after the space station is completed by the end of this year?
I don't believe that the Shenzhou-12 and Shenzhou-13 crew will attend the Shenzhou-14 or 15 missions this year, because the Shenzhou-14 and the 15 mission, the crew has already been selected.
What about future endeavors?
Usually, we will have an interview more than 1 or 2 years for one astronaut in different missions, because they need the readaptation and also other trainings for different missions. And also, I believe that during the Shenzhou-14 missions and Shenzhou-15 mission, we will also have veterans and new recruitment.
What will happen now to the return capsule?
Well, as we have already discussed, the ground staff, especially those from the engineering department, will seal the hatch, and also it will be reopened in Beijing in the space city.
It will be shipped back to Beijing for engineering purpose.
Okay. A lot of.
This pretty much concludes a very nerve-wracking morning for all of us. Now, all of China's 3 astronauts from the Shenzhou-13 mission have now exited the re-entry capsule and are now being transported on that medical vehicle for quarantine in Beijing.
But I'm very eager to know what Yaping will post on WeChat for the first time after.
Please do share with us when she does post. I mean, each one of them.
Astronaut 03 has already been transferred to the medical care vehicle.
I can still remember that her last post on WeChat is just several hours before the liftoff of the Shenzhou-13, and there is the picture of the launch site, and also is a very small doll of the astronauts
have been
with us
transferred to their own designated medical care vehicles now.
And with that, that brings a wrap. The Shenzhou-13 back on Earth after 6 months in space, 183 days. All 3 taikonauts, or Chinese astronauts, have been brought out of the capsule. Lots and well spirits, actually talking to CGTN media there. And you can see how synchronized this operation is, one at a time, but these vehicles are getting ready to depart and transport their crew. The first time in 183 days that this crew is now separate from each other by more than just a couple feet of air or a curtain when they were in their bunks, but are going to be beginning their journey back to Beijing and going through a whole bunch of medical checks and getting connected with their family, at least digitally, as they will go through a bit of a quarantine, but glad to see the Shenzhou-13 back down on Earth safely. A really great large chute deployment, drogue chute, as China has said now, a absolutely perfect return to Earth mission. So happy to see China doing so. As we said earlier in the chat, a space race is important, and any science that's being done in space is good, because that science is ultimately going to help push all of us as a human species forward, no matter who really is the one doing that research. So a really interesting crew, a lot of people loving the female taikonaut there, who's just a beam of energy and done online lectures from the space station, and we're very excited to see what is next for her, with that little message to her daughter saying, "I brought all the stars home." That was one of her daughter's one request there. But that is going to do it for us here tonight. Here at the launch pad, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow, because we believe that space is better together, and we're glad you are all here with us to watch the return of Shenzhou-13. But for now, this is Zach from the TLP Network Studios signing off, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.